you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
all in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years,
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. And Pierre, I don't know if you realize, but a year ago today, well, actually a year ago tomorrow, date-wise, but it was the Thursday before St. Patrick's Day last year, you and I were broadcasting live from Hurley's Irish Pub in downtown Montreal. So I figured I'd give a shout out to our good friends up there, Rod Appleby and the crew, and Turbo and all them. And what a great time that was, Pierre. And we love doing remotes. And speaking of remotes, we are putting together something special for next week. When all the details are confirmed, I will announce it on Monday, but I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll be in Lake, we'll be in Lake Placid, New York. And by the way, my throat doesn't sound great, but I'm not sick. It is what it is.
You're human.
We're getting through it.
You've been working pretty much 20-hour days lately with all your broadcasting appointments. So we can excuse you for that. And you got the honey and the tea, so you're all set. There we go. But I will say, remember that. It was a fun time up there in Montreal. So hello to all our friends up there. We miss you. And Pierre, let's look back. Speaking of Montreal, before we welcome on Jeff Marek, our good friend from The Sheet, his podcast on Daily Faceoff. Before we get into that, let's look back. The Montreal Canadiens last night, low lead and lose in overtime on a play that, you quickly pointed out to me is very legal and was also some amazing advanced scouting by Seattle to realize that Montreal would maybe be susceptible to this.
They line three across. So if you're a centerman and you see that, you're going to tell somebody whether you're jumping on the left side or the right side, depending on the strength of the centerman. I'm just going to push it. I'm going to actually let the guy win the face-off, but I'm going to give him a help to win it back. And so I don't know what Montreal was thinking, but Montour was on the right side, and they put a defenseman, Lane Hudson, on a defenseman. I never would have done that. I would have put a winger or another forward against the D-man and put the D-man on the other side against the forward. In that situation. Anyways, long story short, Montour and Chandler Stevenson work out this brilliant play. Like, that was really well done.
Yep.
And poor Christian Dvorak, all he's trying to do, he thinks I'm winning the drawback. But nobody's moving except for Brandon Montour. And it's the fastest overtime goal in NHL history, 5 seconds.
It was amazing.
It was amazing. And, I was working the game post-game last night with our good friend Tony Marinaro. And I'm watching that and I'm going, I know that's not an advanced scouting play, but that's a dialed in play by Chandler Stevenson and Brandon Montour. That's really a thing of beauty. It really is.
So if it's not advanced scouting in terms of advanced games, how much does, I don't know if advanced would be the word here, but how much does in-game scouting go on the bench, especially in these days of, these guys having the iPads to graph stuff out as well?
Well, that's where you have to have really talented assistants. The head coach can't do that because you're running the bench. He might see some things, but that's when your video people or your on-bench people will say, maybe he's holding his hand a little bit on the stick here. He's trying to pull the puck there. You can detect that over time where he's taking your stick and he's using his feet, or he's trying to take your stick and he's trying to get help from the right side or from the left side. They're all different things. You got to just watch for tactics and tendencies. That being said, Montreal should have won that game, number one.
Yeah, shouldn't even got you.
They were no good in the first period. Dobish kept them in it. They go down 2-0. Quick strike offense coming back from Montreal. I thought Newhook played really well last night for Montreal, really, really well. And I thought Laine did some really good things, especially 5-on-5. I know he gets a power play goal, but I thought he did some things 5-on-5. But Jimmy, you can't take penalties when you're up 2 goals in the third period. And Arbor Jack guy knows that. And look, he's a young kid. He's learning. He'll keep getting better. So this is a live and learn moment. David Savard's not a young guy. He knows he can't be taking a penalty in that situation late in the game. And Christian Dvorak has played fantastically well, Jimmy. He's played really well. If he comes square on Vince Dunn, the shooter in the tying goal situation, that shot gets blocked. Matt Beniers never touches that puck, and the puck doesn't end up in the net. But Dvorak came out sideways, so he didn't close the whole lane down. So Dunn is looking right at Beniers' stick.
Yeah.
And he just blasted at his stick, and then it's past Dobish, and it's a tie game. So for the Canadiens, I know a lot of people are disappointed. You get the point. You move on, Jimmy. But there's some teachable moments here that will benefit them down the road. I think that's the positive them taking out of that.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, Pierre. And I know for fans, it's hard in the moment to realize that and take a step back. But, if you do take a step back the next day in between games and you look at it, I'm sure fans, like real fans that appreciate the game and understand the game, are going to say, hey, we're blessed to be in this position after everything that's happened the last few years. We're here. These guys got to remember, they're still, like you said, this is a live and learn moment. They're still learning on the job. This is moments like this, though they sting in the moment, they make you stronger. They teach you lessons, and they can carry that forward going forward in this season and past it. So, if I'm a Canadiens fan, I'm happy right now. They're still in the mix. They're still in it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Now, one thing I would do, I'd make sure those mistakes don't happen ever again. Now, I don't think Lane Hudson will ever get beat like that ever again.
Well,
I really mean it. He's too smart a player. He's too talented a kid, and he's too passionate about winning. So I don't know how much time you need to spend with him. Just a friendly reminder. Hey, kid, when you're in a face-off situation, especially in a neutral zone, in overtime, 3-on-3, you got to be ready to jump. You can't just be caught with your stick on your knee pads. Yeah. So that's one that gets fixed quick. Dvorak situation, that'll get fixed quick. The end zone coverage and the shot blocking lane, that'll get fixed quick. The penalties, Arbor's been better. I think you would agree.
I was thinking that as you were talking about it. Yeah,
he's been better. He's been better, but he'll need to continue to improve. And David knows he can't do that. Now, he gets caught. He's a right D. He gets caught on the left side. I understand that, but that can't happen at that time in the game. It can't. And just one more shout out, Jimmy. I talked about Newhook, how well he played, and Line A was pretty darn solid. Anybody that tells you, Jimmy Murphy, my friend, that Nick Suzuki's not a number one center, you don't talk to them, Jimmy.
All right.
Don't talk to those people because they got issues. Yeah, that guy's a number one center. He's a fantastic player. Slavkovsky's now developing, and you said the best thing to me this morning on the phone. He's developing into the ultimate new power forward. So I agree with you on that, Jimmy. And then the one other thing, I know a lot of people are saying, well, he's going to be the next Jordan Harris. They're going to move him out. Talking about Jaden Struble. Somebody needs to watch him play the last few games, especially with Hudson.
Yeah.
Jaden Struble's playing his butt off.
No,
he's playing really good hockey.
I don't even say that right now. I can understand it.
Jimmy, come on. You know how many rinks I'm in. And I got people all the time, this and that. And I'm like, calm down. Yeah. He's a good player, and he's getting better all the time. You'll see he's starting to feel it now. I'm really impressed by what Jaden's done, and I think a lot of that. And I'm not at their practices, and neither are you, Jimmy. So we can't speak as aficionados of Canadiens practices. But what I can say is, I coached a long time, and I see players that develop, and I see players that go backwards. Yeah. And I can tell you right now, Jaden Struble's going forward because I think Stefan Robida is doing a real good job with him.
And Pierre, I want to point this out too for our listeners and viewers. Pierre has watched this kid for a long time since he was back playing at my alma mater, St. Sebastian's in Mass. And throughout his progression as a pro, as he's come up into the pro ranks, you have not held back to be critical of him. So this isn't just Pierre, pumping up a kid that he likes and he's seen play for a while. When he's seen bad play, he's called it out. When he sees him play well, he calls that out. So I just want to make sure people understand, like, Pierre has got a good grasp on this kid's development. And I'm with you, Pierre. I mean, it's been a blessing since they put them together. That's been one of their best pairings. And
I agree. Yeah, no, that's good. I agree with that. For Seattle, I get they get the win.
What were we saying yesterday?
The identity. What are they? What type of team are they going to be?
Yeah,
I mean, it pains me to say that. Anybody that was in Pittsburgh knows what I think of Ronnie Francis.
Yep.
I have so much respect for him and have always had a very solid relationship. So I don't know and Jason Bottrell's an amazing guy. He's a really good person, a smart hockey person. He is. Jason's so I don't know what direction the team's going in. but I want to know what identity they're going to have. What kind of team do they want to be?
Yeah. I'm
Like,
with
if you ask me, you just say, Pierre, we're going to go around the league. You say, what's Florida Panthers? I'm going to say hard in your face, tough to play against. You're going to ask me Tampa Bay Lightning. They're fast, they're slick, and they're defending a lot better. And they got an elite goalie. You asked me about Carolina Hurricanes. They have amazing special teams. They got real good PK because they pressure. They're outstanding in terms of shot volume. They generate tons of shots, over 35 shots a game most nights. So every team that's really good or pretty good has some form of identity. I couldn't tell you what Seattle's is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And it especially like we mentioned, they had those big signings last offseason, Montour, Stevenson, but it seems like what's the word I'm looking like the pieces to the puzzle aren't fit. Like who are the role players and what are their roles? What do you want them to do? What do you want those bottom six guys to be doing?
You know who was great last night though for them? That Jordan Eberle was something else last night.
Nice.
Man.
Jimmy,
he was good.
I know. It's tough because he's been hurt so much over his career. Can you imagine if he had to miss all those games, the stats he'd have right now? I mean, he's one of those players that gets forgotten, but he contributes whenever he's healthy. He contributes wherever he is. But
I agree.
We've got our guest on the line here. Let's bring him in right now. Jeff Marek joining us from the Sheet Podcast on Daily Faceoff Network. Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm good, man. Who were you just talking about? I love these stories. Like, if he was healthy, he'd be so.
Jordan Eberle.
Oh man, you want to hear a great story about Jordan Eberle?
Yes.
This. Okay, let's. So a couple of years ago at the NHL Players Tour, was talking to Eberle, and I brought up that first game against the Calgary Flames where he goes down, he dances a couple of defensemen, and goes top shelf on Mikko Rantanen, and it's like, holy smokes, vagina pats, little player, he's going to light up the NHL. And I said, like, when you look at that, Jordan, this is like years later, obviously. I said, when you look at that, what do you think? And he said, you know what's depressing? And I said, what's that? He goes, now, you know what I would do? I'd step over the blue line and I'd shoot far pad for the rebound.
Hey.
All that creativity coming out of junior. Now it's just like the coach just shoot far pad for the rebound, just shoot far pad for the rebound.
No, but you're right. But think about the Magic against the Russians at the World Junior in 2009, or the Magic against the Americans New Year's Eve in 2011 or 2010 in Saskatoon. I mean, he's a fingerprint on all these World Juniors. He's a phenomenal player.
You guys had such a great call. I mean, you guys called so many wonderful junior tournaments, and that's the one that stands out to like everybody.
Yeah,
like that 2000. And I can remember. It's one of those. For Canadians that watch this thing every year, like that's one of those where were you moments. I remember exactly where I was sitting with my wife and my dog, sitting there going, there's no way. And then like everybody in the house, everybody in the country, they popped like the cork out of a champagne bottle when he scored that goal. There's another guy and he plays in the NHL that I always think about. When I hear, man, if only he was healthy his entire career, how productive he'd be, and that's Robbie Fabry.
Oh boy!
Like when you talk about
great one.
Again, like I don't really cheer so much for teams. I cheer for players.
Yep.
And going all the way back, I mean, Robbie Fabry when he played, in the GTHL, his team was the only team to beat Connor McDavid's Marlies. It's 2-1 at the Hershey Center, and Fabry was outstanding. I remember in the OHL, Sioux Greyhounds, Kyle Dubas had to make the decision. Am I taking Fabry or Jared McCann? Fabry's a little small. Like at every single level, there's always been something he's had like against him or a hurdle to jump over. And you just hate for a career to be like so derailed by injuries, considering how great and how highly skilled the player Robbie Fabry is.
Yep.
That's such a good call. And I agree. There was another guy like that out of the University of Wisconsin, Steven Reinprecht. He was a phenomenal talent, and he had shoulder issues coming out of Wisconsin, and he never got, like every year he's dinged up, and you remember, Jeff, I mean, it was just so sad.
Yeah.
Phenomenal talent this guy was. He was an amazing talent.
I'm with you now. Jeff, we want to get into some Leafs talk with you quickly, but first I just want to ask you, were you live as the deadline ended last Friday? And if so, what was that chaos like?
I went on the air at 4 Eastern.
Okay, so it's still coming in.
Yeah, so it's still coming in. You know, it was. I don't know how I'm gonna say this. So I'll just be blunt. You guys have been through so many different trade deadlines.
Yeah.
And we all know about free agency on July 1st. I'm just gonna be blunt with you guys. Did this year's deadline seem extra tampery? like did it not feel that like as the days kind of went on, I'm just like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it or how to couch it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm just going on vibes. I'm just going on vibes, and I'm not accusing anyone specific of anything here, but I'm just like, a lot of people are really in the know about a lot of players and teams, and a lot of players know which teams are interested. And I'm just like, I don't know. I know we look the other way on it come July 1st every year, but this year's deadline kind of had a July 1st vibe about it to me. I don't know what you guys.
I would agree.
I agree too. You know, it's interesting. We talk about July 1st. I will never forget the Dallas Stars, Jeff and Jimmy.
Yeah.
When they at 12:01. They had Donald Audette, Billy Guerin, and one other player sitting right at a podium. We're so proud to sign with the Dallas Stars. And I'm going, wait a second. How did they all get there at 12:01? The 11:01.
The other great one, and we understand the Shirley connection between Ottawa and Boston, was Zdeno Chara.
Oh, yeah.
I think that was another.
I think we know that one.
Yeah. 12:01, and okay.
When was Peter Cirelli hired in Boston?
Yeah. Yep. And then he had to stay.
Had to sit
Gordon
out.
was technically still the interim GM then. So
yes,
yeah, that was interesting for sure. But closer to home for you, Pierre and I like what the Leafs did. We really do. And Pierre had actually said, heading into the deadline, he's talking about, what they could use on defense. And he mentioned Brandon Carlo's name. And he said, that's a guy I think could really help them. And then voila, they go out and they get him. What were your thoughts on how they address their needs and how it's going to help them going forward?
No secret they're looking for a third line center, and not exactly a secret. This is a team that's looked at Scott Laughton for a number of years. And I know a number of teams have looked at Scott Laughton as well. Pierre, good on you for marrying the Maple Leafs to Brandon Carlo as early as you did. I'll tell you, in having a couple of conversations, there was one team that I was speaking to who wondered if, as the Boston Bruins go through a rebuild here of some sorts, a rebuild with one great player at almost every position already outside of center, they wondered if like Mason Lohrei would be someone that would fetch like a big return to really speed things up. The name Brandon Carlo was kind of out there, but not really. I mean, you're marrying him to the Maple Leafs, and great job nailing that one. But there was one team specifically who was wondering about Mason Lohrei. But I think here's the thing about it. You guys know this. It's not necessarily, now I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth because I'm going to talk about Rantanen in a second. But generally, it's the teams that tweak more than make trades at deadline that tend to win. The smaller moves as opposed to the big, the big blockbusters. And I think of Kelly McCrimmon with Ivan Barbashev. At that time, we looked at it and said, man, the people in St. Louis, like, well, you're getting a really, really good player. Kelly McCrimmon obviously knew that. I think he told me it was like 90 viewings they had of Barbashev before they pulled the trigger, maybe even 100 in Vegas, right? And, the history of the NHL is like not the big blockbuster at deadline that gets it done. It's sometimes the smaller moves. So from that, even though they were taking big swings at Mikko Rantanen, like we all know that. I think like the tweaks that they made, provided they stay healthy and get goaltending, and I'll throw in one more, and win the division, which is more important than ever in the Atlantic, as you guys know.
You don't want that 2-3.
I do like what the Maple Leafs did very much. Yeah.
No, I think they have a legitimate chance to win, but you can't be in the 2-3 hole in the Atlantic. Oh. You can't. You just can't.
For a couple of reasons. One, you don't want to play either of those teams, and two, you want those two teams to knock the crap out of each other. You want them to knock it around for 70 games, right? Don't get those two teams anywhere near being fresh.
So I have an opinion, and I hope you're going to agree with it, but I'm not going to tell you my opinion. I'm just going to ask you the question.
Okay.
Is the Berube factor kicking in Toronto?
It is both positively and negatively. And here's why. I mean, positively because we're seeing the Maple Leafs play a profoundly different way. And a lot of players are cool with that. A lot of players have adapted to that. And here's the one negative. It's really obvious that Morgan Rielly is really uncomfortable playing this style of defense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we just don't see Morgan Rielly carrying the puck out of the zone anymore. You know, Craig Berube wants his defensemen around the net, right? Like that's where he wants his defenders. And you're not seeing it with Morgan Rielly, and it's affecting all different parts of his game to the point where Maple Leafs fans are like, what's happened to Morgan Rielly? Well, Morgan Rielly's fallen off the face of the earth. You guys know this as well as anybody. Sometimes certain players don't fit with certain systems.
Mm-hmm.
Just the same way that some goaltenders don't fit with certain teams stylistically, but can look great on a different team. They're still the same goaltender, but everything's different around them. It's a really, really hard system for Morgan Rielly, given his skill set, to play. And that's why I'll say, like, yes, it's a factor, and it's kicking in, both from a positive point of view and a negative point of view. And the negative is, man, it's hard for Morgan Rielly not to gallop. You know, how do you tell this guy not to gallop out there?
We don't rehearse the show just for people at home, and that's kind of where I was going. I was wondering where Morgan Rielly was in the system, so I'm glad you touched on that.
Yeah, you see game in and game out. Like, you know what it's like. It's like, you know, we mentioned Chara earlier, and there was that year in Boston with Dave Lewis where Lewis was like, "No, you're not fighting. The gloves are staying on." And Chara just needed to get a couple out of his system every year. You know, and it was just like you could feel like the frustration building in Chara, but Lewis kept like something as simple as that. Like, you need to let, like, every player is wired a different way. You know, I remember listening to Andrew Raycroft talk about how it's tough to get elite level players to play power play, to play a very simple style of power play, because that's not how they're wired. Like, that's not how they play. You know, it's like the old saying, you know, cows don't make ham. You can't ask someone like Morgan Rielly not to skate. You can't say, Morgan, now stop galloping here. That's kind of how I feel about it.
You know what? That reminds me, when we got Rick talking in Pittsburgh, Dickey was so good for us because he was meat and potatoes. So you had Rick on the right side, Kevin Stevens on the left side, and Mario in the middle. And I was like, good luck if you're the right D or the left D, because you're going to get crushed every freaking game.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's, to your point, I agree. Like, those guys knew they weren't ballerinas. Just take a straight line to the net and you're going to get the puck. 66 going to get it to you. And he did. You know, it fit. It was a brilliant move by Craig Patrick. I love what you said, Jeff, there, because it's so spot on. It's really spot on. Like, either you're this or you're that. You can't be both. Guys can't be both.
Yeah, you can't. It's really it's the rare. Like, I've always felt. I'm curious what you guys think about this. I've always felt that the biggest compliment you can pay a hockey player is this: telling that player you could have played in any era. That, to me, is like one of the biggest compliments you can pay. You can pay any single player. Those players are rare. Like, how many guys, when you just think in your mind, like, just sort of, you know, scan through all the names, like, how many guys have we seen that could play in any single era? Like, we're talking like the Jean Beliveaus, you know, big guy, moves his feet, like these types of players, Nick Lidstrom,
Doug Harvey,
these types of guys. Doug Harvey's a great one. Yes.
Doug Harvey, Eddie Shore.
As long as intimidation is part of the game, Eddie Shore plays in any era.
100%.
You're right. You're right.
Brian Trottier plays in any era.
Yep.
Okay, can we pause on Brian Trottier? There are two centers that have kind of been, I know it was from like the era of, you know, Mario and Wayne and Yzerman and Howard Chuck. But to me, there's like two centers that have been like not lost in history, but that we don't spend enough attention on and not enough time on. And I always love talking about Brian Trottier because I love that Islanders team. One is Brian Trottier and the other is Peter Stastny. We don't talk about, like, you look at the 80s, for example. The 80s, the number one scorer in the 80s in the NHL was Wayne Gretzky. Peter Stastny was number two. Peter Stastny, like, you ask like casual hockey fans, who is number 2? How long until you get to Peter Stastny?
Yep.
Oh,
In the high-flying, high-scoring era,
long. Yeah.
Stastny's
Wow.
number 2.
Yeah.
And Trottier, like, again, what I love about Trottier is, like, what kind of game do you want to play?
And he could
River
do it.
hockey? Do you want to play button down? You want to play kitty bar the door? Like, what do you want to play tough? Like, all of it. And he'll play it, and he'll play it better than you. That's what I always love about Trottier.
All our Stanley Cup winning teams, he never got enough acclaim. I tell Jimmy all the time, and I know it's probably boring for our listeners and viewers. I spent so much time with Brian because his family didn't move with him to Pittsburgh, so he'd always hang around the rink. And we'd break down tape together, and we'd create practice plans together, and we'd talk about this and that, and relationship with Al Arbor, relationship with Clark Gillies, relationship with Michael Bossy, relationship with Denny Potvin, relationship with Stefan Johnson, all these different things. He was a brilliant hockey man. Brilliant hockey man.
And his family, Jimmy, you'll like this one, Canada's Partridge Family.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, like the family act. Pierre knows this, like the family act out west, like traveling around. He played guitar and he sang. It was like Canada's hockey Partridge Family growing up. It was great.
Out there in
Super cool.
Good
Out
stuff.
there in Saskatchewan, hanging out.
Hey, Jeff, switching back, you brought up Rantanen. That whole situation that came out after where they apparently went and asked Marek to waive the no movement. He said no. What was your reaction when you first found that out? And how do you think Marek handled it in the aftermath?
First of all, it's a great question.
Very good.
So it's a really great question. So here's what I think about it. I think that if you're Brad Treliving, and you, first of all, when you have Mikko Rantanen in the conversation, I'm sorry. Like I like Mitch Marner a lot. I think Mitch Marner is an elite player in the NHL, and he's one of the best. But Mikko Rantanen, we're talking about proven regular season, proven playoff, like all of it. If you're Brad Treliving at that point, you're not worried about what this is going to mean for a negotiation for a contract. All you have to be thinking is, I have a chance to make the Maple Leafs better for the playoffs here. And again, I'll take it one step further. If you shut down that conversation before it even happens, and then Marner ends up walking at the end of it, which he still might. Darren Ferris likes to take his players to free agency, which is the right. And the organization finds out that you had a chance to get Mikko Rantanen, but you were more interested in not offending Mitch Marner and wouldn't approach him to waive a no trade. How does the organization look at you? Like I'm saying, like, if I was Brad Treliving, I probably would have done the exact same thing. This is going to offend someone that I'm going to negotiate with, but this is hockey, and we're all grown-ups here, right? Everybody understands what's at stake, and there are jobs at stake. Stanley Cup at stake. A lot of things are at stake here. It's his job to make that Maple Leafs team better. You have a chance to bring in Mikko Rantanen, even if it's going to cost you Mitch Marner. You have that conversation. I think with Mitch Marner, I think you owe it to the team.
On the other side of that, what's the intel around Carolina? Was that handled properly by them?
I think that this way, and I had Eric Tulsky on the program the other day, and he's been consistent about one thing, that this was a swing. This was a swing for the Carolina Hurricanes, and there were no guarantees that he was going to re-sign with the organization. Plenty of trades are made not knowing if a player is going to stick around once they reach free agency here. I think that as we all try to figure out how Eric Tulsky is going to work as a general manager, all of this, we always have to say, in concert with Tom Dundon, the owner here. I think this is our first indication that this is an organization that's going to take big swings. Like, they've been around big players before. They were in on Eichel. You know, they haven't landed the big one. They got Gensel last year, but this is a team, I think, that's going to take big swings for players that can help the organization. And if they work, they work. And if they don't, they'll try to recruit whatever they can. But I think that, like, more so than I think other teams, which, as you guys know, hockey tends to lean more conservative than a lot of other sports. I think this is a team that's going to swing for the fences and almost has like an entrepreneurial slant to what they do. that they don't just look at one thing in a vacuum. I think if you're Eric Tulsky, you're saying to yourself, I'm going to take 10 swings, and if I get on base 6 times, that's how you win. That's how you make a successful organization, as opposed to, this one's too risky. Let's just hope our players develop quicker. I think this is going to be an aggressive Carolina Hurricanes team, Pierre, and I really do think that they're going to continue to behave this way. And I am curious to see how Logan Stankoven does here. I think because it's like, honestly, like, good luck getting into that top 6 in a significant way. Yeah. Especially when Tyler Seguin comes back. So I'm really curious to see Stankoven with this team.
It's a great point. It's very fair. I'm going to tell you my most disappointing team this year, and then you tell me what you think of your most. My most disappointing team is Buffalo. Yours?
Buffalo, hands down. Like, honestly, I don't even think that I can't hot take that one. I can't Wright Bauer that one for all you euchre players out there. I can't, because, going into the season, the talk was it's going to be playoffs, or there's going to be major decisions at the end of the year. And it's not really just about this one season. It's about accumulation of seasons. And now you're seeing fans make really awful decisions. Like, the way that I was saying it the other day is this: you're not in trouble when fans stop going, because you can get fans back with a successful team. The true sign, I think, of death or trouble with your organization is when fans have bought a ticket but choose not to go. And I feel like that's where we're at with Buffalo. Right? It's not that they're not buying tickets to begin with. Yep. Yeah, that's where they're at, right? And listen, like, I don't really cheer for teams, but I have a real soft spot in my heart for the Buffalo Sabres. I grew up with the voice of Ted Darling and the French Connection and King Kong Korab and Danny Gare and, like, Larry Playfair, like, really, really good, fun teams. And
don't forget number 6, Jimmy Schoenfeld. Crazy.
Jimmy,
track you down and beat you up.
With my favorite hockey album, I've got it downstairs, Shoney, where he does an incredible, and you haven't lived until you've heard it, Jim Schoenfeld singing Jimi Hendrix's All Along the Watchtower. It's one of the great. I've got the album. It's fantastic.
That's awesome.
It's one of my treasures. And man, was he ever tough. Like, Boston was fun, but Buffalo was fun. Buffalo's a fun team. I think they have one of the coolest logos. I think they're one of the best looks. And you just, like, at the beginning of every year, I just, like, look in the Buffalo Sabres, just please be good. Yeah. But this is a team that, we always talk about don't rush your players. This whole team's been rushed. And everybody's, like, playing one slot higher than they should. Thankfully, even though they rolled out the red carpet for him and handed him a position, they're doing the right thing with Devin Levi by putting him in Rochester. Rochester is one of the best teams in the American Hockey League. Yeah. Like, they're fantastic. Laval's great. Rochester's right there. Hershey's always good. To me, but I'm with you on this one, Pierre. And again, I'm going to steal your gimmick here. We didn't rehearse this. Like, it's true. Like, we don't talk about it. You're right. Like, our brains are symbiote on this one. I can't think of a more disappointing team this year than the Buffalo Sabres. And the scary thing about it is, what's the plan to get out?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too, guys. And where does ownership stand with this too right now? I mean, I'm not there enough, but from afar, it seems like they're just so focused on the Bills, and I get it. They're a Super Bowl contender every year, and you just sign your quarterback to a big deal. But I know a lot of Sabres fans, and they feel really left out right now. That's how they feel.
Yeah. So I have a pet theory. That, Kevin Adams, at the end of his career when he was with the Chicago Blackhawks, maybe had a sort of tainted vision about how quickly young players can jump into NHL lineups, because he was there when Pat Kane and Jonathan Taves jumped in, future Hall of Famers. And I look at how the Buffalo Sabres have, rushed players to the NHL with little, or in some cases, no American Hockey League experience. And I just wonder if watching Taves and Kane jump in with the Hawks and do what they have done with Chicago kind of tainted the idea of development. I mean, there's a couple of pieces here. You guys know this. There's the drafting piece, and just as important is the development piece. And you just don't see it there with the Buffalo Sabres. And that's where you really set your franchise back. I mean, how many times have you heard, like, how many years do you set your franchise back when you miss on your first rounder. Either you make the wrong pick or the development piece isn't there. And that's where I see the swords.
That's even worse. Yeah.
Now we know why you're so good at your job, Jimmy. We gotta let this guy go.
Yeah, we got to. I know you got to go get.
He's highly addictive. Highly addictive.
I have you both fooled. Who's kidding me?
I hear you. Listen, you have a. I don't know if you celebrate, but have a great St. Patrick's Day, and you hear some good Irish.
I always fire on.
Go ahead.
And listen nonstop.
There you go, my friend. One of my favorite bands. Check out the Mahones too. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but check them out.
From Grace with God. Yes, the Mahones too. Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Jim,
Right.
we bond over that, pal.
Yep.
Thanks,
all right,
Jeff.
Always a pleasure. Jeff Marek here on the ITS
Right.
on the Sick Podcast Network. He's awesome. I love talking about him.
He's a good friend. He's loyal as the day is long. He's really smart. He's a really smart guy. He presents so well.
He's such a student of the game too.
I'm glad he landed on his feet. I'm glad he's back and landed on his feet. He never. Anyways.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
I'll just button up now.
Yep, I know. You don't. It's mutual. Don't worry. But no, he's such a student of the game, and what I love about him too, Pierre, and some people don't like it, but I love, and you're like this too, and I love it about you. Is the little nuances, the little facts, the little tidbits he knows about the history of the game or the history of a player. Like what he's talking about, Schoenfeld there. That was great.
Yeah,
I love that story.
So it's because he's working at his job. It's not just a job. It's a passion. It's a passion that overtakes so many things in your life. There's nothing wrong with it. You can't get into trouble if you're doing it. Yep. Like people ask me, what do you like to do? I like to watch hockey games.
Yeah.
I like to see who's involved in the game at all levels. And you've been with me.
Yes.
Women's game, junior games, college games, midget game. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
I just like doing that. Other people like to do other stuff. I don't tell them what to do. I like to go to the rink.
But I don't know, Pierre, maybe I'm just saying this because I'm in hockey and maybe it doesn't sound objective, but it seems to me sometimes, and I've worked in other sports in the media landscape, that hockey is amongst all the 4 pro sports, one of the biggest games in terms of roots of their athletes, in terms of how proud they are, where they come from, it's part of the fabric of who they are on and off the ice. And that's Jeff gets that. You get that. I love that about the conversation we just had.
You know what? I love what you just said. Then I'll tell everybody out there why that is. We're the only sport where we take kids at 12 and 13 and take them away from their parents and move them to different places. Yep. My boy left when he was 13. I left home when I was 14 years old. A bunch of, how old do you think Crosby was when he went to Shattuck? He was 13 or 14. You go down the line, Jonathan Taves, same kind of thing, Nathan McKinnon. So they go to these places, other families look after them, they develop this billet bond, and it changes your life, but it gives you perspective on other people and how they do things. I'll give you one quick story, and then I know we have a bunch of text messages and people we want to answer their questions. When COVID came in, my son went to Penticton to play for Freddie Harbinson. He still to this day says the best year of his life. He loved living in Penticton. He loved his billet family. He loved everything about it. He graduated from Penticton High School. He left a very prominent prep school in Massachusetts and graduated from Penticton High School. To this day, when people ask him, where'd you graduate from Penticton High School? His parents couldn't go there. I couldn't go to graduation, and neither could his mother because the border was shut down. So the Niedermeyers, Scott and his wife, and their 2 boys who played with my son in Penticton for the V's, they went and acted as his family. And they were taking pictures, and they had pom-poms, they had signs up. And to this day, my wife will tell you, we both get really emotional talking about it.
I would too.
Because could you imagine a family doing that for you?
Especially in the middle of COVID and everything.
That's what I'm saying. The family did that. So there's a Hockey Hall of Famer who I watched play junior hockey for Kamloops Blazers, who I coached against in the NHL when he was a player. I had the privilege of broadcasting his Olympic gold medals, all this different stuff, his Stanley Cup championships. And he's there doing that for my son and our family.
That's great.
That's what makes hockey, the stories of hockey, so great, because people do go away and they get to experience the beauty of all the different people in the world. It's an awesome opportunity.
Love it. Love it. That is great. And that's That's exactly what I'm talking about. Great example of that. I appreciate it, Pierre. All right, let's get to our sponsors right now, and then we will hit this Q&A because they are lining up there. It seems people definitely enjoyed Jeff, as I expected they would. Let's talk to you about TCS Customs and Logistics. Unlock the full potential of your shipping operation with TCS Customs and Logistics. From around the corner to around the world, flatbeds to air freight, customs clearance to drawback consulting, TCS is a one-stop shop for all things transport, moving pieces and delivering a peace of mind. For no obligation customs or freight quote, contact sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. Again, that is sickpodcast at shiptcs.com. And let's talk to you about our wonderful gambling sponsor, Betway. You can go right now all the way with Betway and get a free bet up to $200, even if your first bet loses. That's right. You win money, even if your first bet loses, but it's only for new customers. So if you're not a customer, go there right now. The QR code right in front of you. If you're watching, sign up there, or go to the website in the details section and create a new account. Again, it's only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. It is not available in Ontario. You must be 18 plus, and please play responsibly. Let's go to the sick picks of the night.
It's time for Sick Picks, brought to you by Betway.
All right, I'm going to go right to the team that I watch a lot, the Boston Bruins in Ottawa, for a big one there for both teams. The Ottawa Senators in a wild card position, the Bruins chasing them. Bruins have surprisingly, 2 straight since the trade deadline. Caught Tampa and Florida sleeping a bit, maybe. But they go in right now, Pierre, and I just feel like they're running into a buzzsaw against the Ottawa Senators. You're not going to get great value betting the Senators straight up on the money line, but what you can do is you go to the 60-minute regulation line, which means if you bet them to win, they have to win within 60 minutes. If they go to overtime, then you lose the bet. It doesn't matter if they win in overtime. But the 60-minute regulation game, you can still get them at even money. I think they win in regulation. I'm feeling like a 3-2, 4-2 score. So give me the Sens in regulation. And then I'm going to go to Toronto and Florida. The Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers, 2 old goalie partners going at each other, Pierre, and Stolars and Bobrovsky. Of course, won a Stanley Cup together in Florida last year. I saw the Panthers had a great time going to the Hall of Fame for their Stanley Cup Hall of Fame celebration the other day. Panthers, as I said, coming off that loss in Boston. I think they're going to be revved up for this one. Leafs back on from a long road trip. Sometimes teams are flat in the opening period. They're in the first home game back. So give me the Florida Panthers in the first period money line at plus 120. And then we go out west to the LA Kings and the Washington Capitals. Darcy Kemper facing his former team. This, I think, is going to be a very defensive struggle. And the Kings are pretty good on home ice. They usually don't allow much space out there. Give me the under 6.5 in this one. I think this game is a low-scoring affair. Under 6.5 in Kings Caps. And those are my picks. Let's go to the Q&A. Sam Shee. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I have a question for you guys. Do you think the Blues make the playoffs this year with a win tonight against Pittsburgh? Well, it will certainly help. It won't assure it, but Sam, I think it would be a great story if they do. It was only a few weeks ago. It looked like they were not going to be in this mix right now, but they are. And I do think that was another one I was looking at. I like their chances in Pittsburgh tonight. What's been your take on the Blues recently, Pierre?
They've been good ever since Jimmy got there. Jimmy Montgomery's done a really good job with them. I don't think they're going to have enough to make the playoffs, but the fact they're playing meaningful games really matters. The injury to Colton Parayko really is tough for them. I don't know how they overcome that. But I think Jimmy's done a really good job putting his footprint on that team. So the future's brighter in St. Louis, which I think is good.
Yep, for sure. All right, next question. Alex Evanowski, is Adam Fantilli where you expected him to be, or is he ahead of where you expected him to be in his second season? Pierre, I know you're a big fan. I'll let you take this one.
He's right where I thought he'd be. Last year's injury set him back a little bit, but I thought he would have won. If he would have stayed healthy, I think he would have won the Rookie of the Year last year in the NHL. He's put on some magnificent shows. It doesn't hurt that Zach Werenski's there. It doesn't hurt that Boone Jenner is back. Mm-hmm. Boone Jenner is a tremendous character leader. So, yeah, no, it's pretty exciting for them. If I were a Blue Jackets fan, I'd be so excited to have that kid part of my organization.
Pierre, and I don't know if it was Columbus or it was an outside training staff that he had in the offseason after that injury, but, we were just having that conversation about some players and what could have been because of injuries, right? Whoever was helping him with his training and he himself deserves a ton of credit for whatever they did in the offseason to bounce back from that injury. Because I imagine a young kid, high hopes coming in, and you have that setback early, it could devastate you mentally. And he did a great job bouncing back.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think that's a really good way to look at it. The other part is I know players that have played against him at the college level and at the pro level, and they all say the same thing. This guy's a freak of nature. He's so physically strong. He's got farm strength. He's a naturally strong, really big, thick, heavy body to play against.
Awesome. Well, I hope he's playing in the playoffs this year. I would love to see it. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, when you look at Detroit overall, what's one area you think they need to address in the offseason, being the draft or free agency? I would say more goal scorers on the wings. I wouldn't mind another center, another strong center in a 2 or 3 slot.
Both of you are right on. The one thing, though, that, again, I think people don't pay enough attention to is their farm team in Grand Rapids is starting to really produce some players. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I know was a long-term vision for Steve Yzerman and Sean Horkoff and Chris Draper and their staff. So that's a positive thing for them as well. They've got assets. They've got assets coming.
All right, next question. What do we got? Joe, question. Best trade for Kent Hughes so far?
I'm going to say Alex Carrier.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing.
I mean, there are other trades that they've made, but Carrier changed the whole – once they got him, it changed the whole slotting in their defense. Mm-hmm. And they desperately needed a right-shot defenseman that could play the way he does.
Yep.
And I think that's really helped change a lot of the things in the organization.
All right, next question. Ron LaRoque. Jimmy, besides you, who is one of your favorite hockey writers? Kevin Paul DuPont. When we've had him on here a couple times, growing up, he was one of my favorite writers, and then the late Russ Conway, and then back in the day, Red Fisher. Those would be my top 3.
Yeah, those are all really good picks. So I'm gonna stick with those 3, and then just gonna peruse. I'm gonna say Michael Farber.
Ooh, that's a good one as well.
Michael Farber.
Also,
Michael Farber. People forget this. He wrote for Sports Illustrated for the longest time. Michael Farber wrote at the Montreal Gazette, and his hockey stories were unbelievable.
Yeah.
They were awesome.
He's amazing. Definitely one of the best wordsmiths around. All right, next question. WPHL, what can be done to make the World Hockey Championships more appealing for both players and hockey fans, depending on the year? It is close to being a best-on-best tournament.
Nah. People don't want to go because, well, not everybody. A lot of guys want to go too, but the problem is it's a long year. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. It's a very long year, and people just get tired of it. They need a break. Their bodies need a break.
And in terms of the fan side of it, Pierre, I think it's just because, you've got the Stanley Cup playoffs going on over here in North America. So what are you going to choose? But if you go to Europe, it's huge. It's big. They pack it and they love it.
Well, I broadcast a ton of them, and one thing I can tell you, the World Championships in Europe is a celebration of the end of winter. Mm-hmm. That's how they view it. So the Latvians are the king of the party. Nobody parties harder at those things than the Latvians. But the Finns and the Swiss and the Germans and the Swedes, they're awesome participants. The Russians, the Czechs, the Slovaks. I'm telling you, it's the end of winter. People air it out at those things. It's a ton of fun to be at, I can tell you that.
I think David Pastrnak was still feeling it when he got back to Boston after they won gold.
Well, they went after it pretty good after they won. They had a pretty good time after they won.
All right, next question. Joe, question. Let's say Buffalo GM gets fired. Which guy should they hire? With Pierre, of course.
Well, I've said it a million times, and I'll say it again. Ray Shero should be there. I don't know what the hesitation is. He knows Terry Pegula. And I'm not saying Kevin Adams has to be fired, but they should put Ray Shero. They should put Ray Shero on either president of hockey operations, some other title. They need to do this soon. Mm-hmm. You have to bring credibility to the decision-making level in the front office. And bigger than that, you need to bring – and I thought Jeff Marek handled it perfectly. You need to bring credibility back so you don't have apathy with your fan base.
Yep, I'm with you on that. And by the way, while we were talking to Jeff, and I forgot to say it, Connor Zary suspended 2 games, Pierre.
For last night?
Yep.
Yeah, he should have been.
Yep, I agree. That was intentional. All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, I'm really disappointed with the Hawks. I was expecting a lot more from them. Your thoughts? Randy, we've discussed this a few times. Yeah, we didn't think that. I'll put it this way, actually. Pierre and I went through this, what was it, about 2 weeks ago when we were looking at their system? And we did both say, okay, well, you know what? Defense-wise, they've got some guys coming. They've got a lot of solid talent coming on the defensive side of things. But yeah, I think they need to still do a better job at the NHL level surrounding young kids with the right people.
Agreed.
All right. Next question. Randy Workman, that's the second time the Habs lost a game off the draw. The Coronado goal for the Flames also. Is this a coaching issue?
No, I don't think so. It's just they're an inexperienced team, Montreal. They're going to learn. I know one thing, Randy. Lane Hudson will never make that mistake again. He will never make that mistake again. That what happened last night.
Yep. All right. And I think that's it. Wow. Short one today. If you guys got more, we still got time. We're not against the clock, so let me know. But that looks like it's it right now. Pierre, what games you honing in on tonight?
I'll be watching Toronto and Florida, a lot of that. I'll be watching a lot of Ottawa tonight with Boston because it to your point, it's a big game for Ottawa in terms of establishing where they want to go. And if they do, I think then people will probably say, okay, they're for real. They're going to make it. If they take a step back tonight, then I think it's fair game to wonder just what team are we going to be seeing the last 16 or 17 games of the year. But a really big focus for me will be Florida and Toronto. It's a very important game for Toronto, and it's a very important game for Florida.
It's huge and could be a playoff preview. We shall see. All right. We want to thank Jeff Marek for joining us here. Oh, I missed one question I'm getting. Ron's question. There we go. Ron LaRocque. I apologize, Ron.
Yeah.
I just saw Quinnipiac and Michigan are bubble teams for the playoffs. Who gets in?
It would be really smart for Quinnipiac to win the ECAC championship. I think the ECAC, if Quinnipiac doesn't win it, I think they're only going to get one team. And whomever that might be, whether it be Clarkson, whether it be Harvard, whether it be Colgate, whether it be Cornell. The series to watch this weekend, because they will have an impact. Will Brown extend Quinnipiac to 3 games? Mm-hmm. Will Colgate be able to handle the forecheck of Cornell, and it's at Colgate? Will Clarkson do what they did to Harvard 2 weeks ago and beat them 6-0 at Clarkson? That's a quick turnaround for the Harvard kids. That's long bus rides back and forth, and they're doing it twice in less than 2 weeks. That's a lot. I'm just telling you, they're not used to that. And so those are the big for that league. Anyways, in the Hockey East, it's pretty simple. It's just look at the games last night, Jimmy. Mm-hmm. Every game was a 1-goal game. You had 2 games go to overtime. 1 game went to double overtime. Northeastern over Merrimack. You know, the UMass UVM game was a tight one, 2-1. You look at UMass Lowell and what they were able to do against UNH. You know, they had to win in overtime. Like this Hockey East is at
another reward for UMass Lowell there. Oh, you got to drive to Orono.
You get to go to Orono. Yeah, well, how about Northeastern? Hey, guys, congratulations. You just went on the road and you get to go to Boston College to play in front of 10,000 maniacs.
Yeah.
You know, like
team in the country.
So, you know, that's Hockey East.
Yep.
That's Hockey East. And then here's the one that's going to blow you away. Tomorrow, UConn is hosting Providence. Providence didn't get a home playoff game.
Wow.
Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
That's how hard this league is. Yep. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be tough. We do have 2 more there. If we want to take them, we got time.
Sure, of course.
One more question. Who's the best rebuilding team right now, Pierre? I'd say the Montreal Canadiens.
Good. That's a good question. That's a really good question. I'm going to say Montreal too.
Yep.
I'm going to say Montreal.
I do think, and I know they had a tough start, but if you watch them right now, they're playing, even when they're losing, they're playing tough. And we're not just saying this because we like Greg Cronin, but I think the Ducks are starting to come a bit.
Well, their kids are starting to, Mason McTavish, Cutter Gauthier, the kids are starting to go there. Even Zegras is starting to pop a lot.
Exactly.
Their defense is starting to come together. No, like I know they had a tough one against Washington. That Washington's good.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? Like Washington's good, but no, I think Greg's done a really good job there. And so has Pat Verbeek, by the way. They've done a good job there. But if you were to ask me right now, like, what team could you see really build Montreal? Look at all their prospects.
Yep.
You know, Lane Hudson is a second-round pick. Slavkovsky is really starting to evolve. They stole Suzuki out of Vegas. They stole him.
Yep.
And Max Patre is a friend of mine, so he won't take it personal.
Yep.
At this point in his career, Max is near the end, and Nick's just going into the prime of his career. He's a phenomenal player. Caulfield was a good pick by Marc Bergevin.
Yeah,
he deserves credit on Caulfield at 15. That was a good pick, really good pick. So there's a lot of stuff that is good in Montreal.
And coming too. And then Ethan Russell's got a question there. Jake DeBrusk. What's the difference with Jake DeBrusk in Vancouver and in Boston? Where did Boston go wrong?
It didn't go wrong in Boston. Go look at his numbers, Ethan. His numbers are really consistent.
Yeah, I would say I would look at the team. I always got the vibe that they didn't accept him for what he is. Like, I felt like they always wanted him to be sort of like that big bad Bruin guy, or, you know, more rugged. And
well, then if they wanted that, they didn't see him play in Swift Current.
Exactly.
They didn't see him play in Red Deer, and that's troublesome. Look at just because his dad was one tough hombre. I saw him play a lot for the London Knights. His dad was tough, man. Just because his dad Louis was a tough guy doesn't mean Jake's going to be a tough guy.
He is who he is.
You know, I'll tell you one thing: Jake has way better hands than his father, and is a way better skater than his dad.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, his dad would admit that right now. If Lou was on the air with us, he'd say the same thing. So, I mean, I can tell you this with full confidence. As part of an organization not that long ago, most of us, not all of us in the organization, most of us in the organization were prepared to move some assets to get him in Ottawa.
Yep.
Okay?
Yeah.
Just telling you.
I've seen it done before to other players, and I just felt like he got a raw deal at times in Boston. That's my opinion. But
I think he did too, and I think part of it is because he's a nice guy.
He's a nice kid. Yeah, he's laid back. Look at the way they get on pasta for being a nice guy and being laid back.
There was a really nice guy traded out of there that's going on to have a Hall of Fame career. His name's Joe Thornton.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, just so everybody knows. So stop picking on Jake DeBrusk.
Yep. I'm with you on that. All right. On that note, let's end it here. Everyone out there, enjoy the hockey. Thanks to Jeff Marek. Amazing guest. Always a good time we have him on. Thank you to Shane working the boards. He also helped us record our on campus earlier this morning, which will be available tomorrow.
You know what Shane didn't do? Shane didn't work until 2:15 in the morning this morning. Where the heck was he? I was looking for Shane on the box, and he's like, nowhere to be found. Jesus, Shane, get to work, man.
He's our favorite. We're glad to be working with him.
He's always working, this guy. This guy's always working, Shane. He's amazing. He's amazing.
And for that on-campus episode, you'll want to turn in because it was a great interview we had with NHL player agent Jordan Newman.
So good.
Really insightful stuff. He did not hold back on some sensitive topics. Nope. You'll want to hear that. Some really insightful stuff from an agent's point of view, and also just a hockey fan's point of view.
Yeah, so he was outstanding. I texted him before. You know, good. It was really good. Yeah, he did a really good job. I was really impressed.
A lot of good stuff there. Fresh off Jonathan Quick's extension, who's one of his prize clients there. But listen, great stuff. And he's also had Spencer Knight, as we discussed. Spencer Knight fans, you want to tune in for that as well. Listen, Pierre, you enjoy the hockey. Feel better, my friend. And
I feel fine. I sound like, poop, but I feel fine. Good. I usually sound like poop anyway, so it doesn't matter. Right. Doesn't matter.
But you know what? As Billy Crystal said, you look marvelous.
Oh, you're nice. Thank you.
You feel marvelous. Have a great, marvelous night. This has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.